The decision Cleveland can't keep dodging. The Cleveland Browns are standing in front of the most obvious quarterback decision in the entire NFL. And somehow, they are still acting like this is complicated. Shedeur Sanders is out in the summer heat, moving like a player who knows his moment is coming, working with urgency, sharpening every detail, showing the kind of hunger that turns a locker room's attention in seconds. And yet, somewhere inside that building, the Browns are still entertaining the idea that Deshaun Watson should be handed another chance to rescue a chapter that has already cost this franchise far too much. That is the part fans cannot ignore anymore. This is not just a training camp storyline. This is not just another quarterback battle designed to fill sports talk segments in July. This is a franchise standing at the edge of two completely different futures. One future belongs to a young quarterback with fire in his eyes, a point to prove, and a fan base desperate for something real to believe in. The other future belongs to the same old excuse, the same old financial mistake, and the same front office fear that has kept Cleveland stuck in football quicksand for years. Shedeur Sanders is not asking for a gift. He is not asking for sympathy. He is doing what serious quarterbacks do. He is showing up, putting in work, taking the noise, and turning it into preparation. The video clips, the summer workouts, the sharp movement, the confidence, the body language, everything points to a player who understands that this opportunity may define the entire early arc of his NFL career. And that is why this matters. Because Cleveland cannot afford to pretend the past still deserves protection. Browns fans have waded through disappointment after disappointment, and now they are watching the front office possibly risk the future just to soften the embarrassment of a failed investment. So before we go deeper, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city in the comments. If you believe Shedeur Sanders should be the Week 1 starter, comment 1. If you still believe Watson deserves the job, comment 2. And if you want real NFL stories without the sugarcoating, hit subscribe right now, because this Browns quarterback drama is only getting louder. The Watson shadow still hanging over Cleveland. The problem in Cleveland is not just about who throws the first pass in Week 1. The real problem is the shadow still hanging over this organization. And that shadow has a name. Deshaun Watson. The Browns invested too much, defended too much, waited too long, and now they are trapped inside the most dangerous mindset in football, trying to prove an old decision was right, instead of making a new decision that actually helps the team win. That is where organizations lose themselves. Not on draft night, not in free agency, not even on... They lose themselves in meeting rooms when people with power become more committed to protecting their pride than protecting the future of the franchise. And right now, that is exactly what Browns fans are afraid they are watching. Watson's time in Cleveland has not delivered what the front office promised. The offense did not become dangerous. The building did not become stable. The fan base did not become united behind him. Instead, the Browns became a franchise constantly explaining, constantly defending, constantly hoping that the next stretch of games would finally justify everything they gave up. But football does not care about contracts. Football does not care about old press conferences. Football does not care how much money is attached to a name. When the ball is snapped, the only thing that matters is whether the quarterback can move the offense, command the huddle, protect the football, and give the team belief. That is why Shedeur changes the entire conversation. He represents movement. He represents oxygen. He represents the possibility that Cleveland can stop dragging yesterday into every tomorrow. And that is exactly why the decision feels so tense. Starting Shedeur means admitting the organization has to move forward. Keeping Watson in the picture means the Browns may still be negotiating with their own regret. And fans can feel it. They know when a team is building honestly and when a team is stalling. They know when a competition is real and when it is being used as cover. If Shedeur clearly gives Cleveland energy, rhythm, and upside, but the Browns still hesitate, then this stops being a football debate. It becomes a credibility crisis. What Shedeur survived changes everything. To understand why this situation is so explosive, you have to look at what Shedeur Sanders has already been forced to carry. Too many people want to judge a young quarterback by numbers alone, as if stats fall out of the sky without context. But football is never that simple. A quarterback does not operate in a vacuum. He is shaped by protection, play calling, receivers, timing, confidence, and the structure around him. And last season, the structure around Shedeur was not built to help a young quarterback grow. It was built like a storm. The offensive line struggled badly. Pressure came too quickly. Plays broke down before they had a real chance to develop. Instead of calmly reading the field, Shedeur often had to survive the field. That matters. It changes the meaning of every completion, Every miss, every sack, every hurried throw. Then came the receiver problem. A young quarterback needs trust on the outside. He needs players who separate, finish routes, attack the ball, and give him clean answers when the pocket starts to collapse. When those answers are not there, the quarterback looks worse than he really is. The timing looks broken. The offense looks confused. And suddenly, analysts who never watch the full picture start pretending the quarterback alone was the issue. That is what made the criticism feel so unfair. Some national voices pulled up the ugly numbers and presented them like the final truth. But those numbers were not the full story. They were the smoke. The fire was the environment. Shedeur was not simply playing quarterback. He was absorbing pressure, learning on the fly, dealing with limited support, and still trying to hold himself like a leader. That kind of experience can break some players. But it can also sharpen the right one. And that is what Cleveland needs to understand. If Shedeur is still standing after that kind of football chaos, still working, still improving, still looking hungry in the heat, then maybe the Browns are not looking at a risky young quarterback. Maybe they are looking at a player who has already passed the hardest test, surviving a broken situation without losing belief. The media missed the real story. The national media loves a clean graphic. A completion percentage here, a passer rating there, a few red numbers on a screen, and suddenly a complicated football story gets flattened into one lazy conclusion. That is exactly what happened with Shedeur Sanders. Too many people wanted the easy version. They wanted to say the numbers were bad, the concerns were real, and Cleveland needed to be careful. But careful is not the same as honest. Honest analysis asks what was happening around the quarterback. Honest analysis asks whether the offense gave him time. Honest analysis asks whether the playmakers created separation. Honest analysis asks whether the coaching staff put him in a position to show what he could actually become. Instead, the conversation around Shedeur became too simple, too fast. Some analysts talked about his flaws without giving equal weight to the disaster around him. They treated survival like failure. They treated pressure like poor decision-making. They treated a broken offense like a personal indictment. That is why the pushback mattered. When credible football voices started saying the Browns should seriously consider Shedeur as the starter, they were not just chasing attention. They were pointing at the thing the graphics ignored. They were saying that training camp should matter, performance should matter, current readiness should matter more than old contracts and political pressure inside the building. And the phrase that cuts through everything is simple. The best quarterback in camp should start. Not the most expensive quarterback. Not the quarterback attached to the biggest pass decision. Not the quarterback whose presence makes executives feel less embarrassed. The best quarterback should start. That is the cleanest standard in football. And somehow it feels revolutionary in Cleveland. Because if the Browns truly apply that standard, then Shedeur has a real path. If he outworks, outplays, and outcommands the room, then there should be no hidden rule keeping him from the field. The problem is not whether Shedeur can compete. The problem is whether Cleveland has the courage to let the competition be real. And that is why fans are watching every clip, every quote, every practice report. They are not just looking for signs about Shedeur. They are looking for signs that the Browns have finally learned how to tell themselves the truth. The summer heat is sending a message. There is something powerful about the image of Shedeur Sanders working in the summer heat. No bright stadium lights, no roaring crowd, no Sunday broadcast turning every throw into a national debate, just sweat, movement, repetition, and a young quarterback preparing like he knows the door will not open unless he kicks it open with his work. That is the kind of detail fans notice. They see the cotton clothes, the cleats, the routes, the footwork, the way he moves with confidence instead of panic. They see a player who is not waiting for the Browns to crown him. He is preparing to make the decision unavoidable. That matters because quarterback is not just an arm talent position, it is a presence position. The team has to feel you. The locker room has to believe you are serious. Coaches have to see that you are not just talented, but dependable. Every rep is a message. Every workout is a statement. Every detail says, I know what is at stake. And Shedeur's message has been clear. He is not shrinking from the pressure. He is not acting overwhelmed by the noise. He is not letting the Watson conversation define his mindset. He is working like a player who knows he can change the room. That kind of confidence can be dangerous in the best way. It forces coaches to watch closer. It forces teammates to pay attention. It forces the front office to confront reality. Because the more Shedeur looks ready, the harder it becomes to justify keeping him on the sideline. And that is where Cleveland's discomfort begins. If Shedeur were struggling, the front office would have an easy excuse. They could say he needs time. They could say the veteran gives them the best chance. They could hide behind patience. But if Shedeur keeps stacking strong days, the excuse disappears. Then the Browns have to choose between what the field is showing them and what the contract is pressuring them to do. That is why this summer matters. This is not just conditioning. This is not just off-season content. This is Shedeur Sanders quietly turning up the temperature on the entire Cleveland Browns organization. The Browns finally gave him a real chance. Here is the part that makes this season different. Cleveland can no longer use the same excuses. If Shedeur Sanders struggled in a broken offense before, that was context. But now the Browns have spent the offseason trying to repair the very things that made life so difficult for him. They addressed the offensive line. They added bodies, competition, and protection help. They understood, at least on some level, that no quarterback can properly develop when the pocket collapses before the play has a chance to breathe. That alone changes the conversation. A young quarterback with even one extra second can become an entirely different player. Then they worked on the weapons. The receiver room has more options. The passing game has more possibilities. The offense has a better chance to create rhythm instead of asking the quarterback to manufacture miracles under pressure. That is what development is supposed to look like. Give the young player a structure, then judge him inside that structure. And that is why this upcoming training camp carries so much weight. This is not last year's chaos. This is not the same empty toolbox. If Shedeur now gets better protection, cleaner routes, improved timing, and a coaching staff willing to build around his strengths, then Cleveland finally gets a real evaluation. But that is exactly why the Watson question becomes even more dangerous. Because if the team improved the environment and then gives the first real chance to the wrong quarterback, what was the point? Why rebuild the stage and then refuse to let the future step onto it? The Browns cannot say they want to develop Shedeur while hiding him behind a decision they are afraid to admit failed. Development requires reps. Leadership requires ownership. Confidence grows when a franchise shows a young quarterback that his work actually means something. If Cleveland truly believes in competition, then let the improved roster reveal the truth. Let Shedeur take the field with real protection. Let him throw to real weapons. Let him command the offense without every snap feeling like a rescue mission. Because now the Browns have no excuse left. They finally gave the quarterback room a better situation. The next question is whether they have the courage to give Shedeur the keys. The fan base is running out of patience. Browns fans have seen enough empty promises to recognize danger before it fully arrives. They have lived through rebuilds, resets, false hope, quarterback drama, front office speeches, and seasons that began with belief but ended in frustration. So when they look at this Shedeur Sanders situation, they are not reacting emotionally for no reason. They are reacting from experience. They know what it looks like when the organization overthinks the obvious. They know what it sounds like when decision makers start using careful language because they are trying not to say the truth out loud. They know the difference between a real competition and a political balancing act. And right now, that is what makes the fan base nervous. They are not just asking whether Shedeur can play. They are asking whether the Browns will allow the best answer to win. That frustration can become powerful fast. If Shedeur performs well in camp and still gets pushed aside, the reaction will not be quiet. Fans will not simply accept another explanation about patience, veteran leadership, or process. They will see it for what they believe it is: the franchise protecting an old mistake at the expense of a new possibility. That is the kind of decision that can split a locker room, poison a season, and turn every incomplete pass from Watson into a public referendum. Every drive would become a debate. Every camera shot of Shedeur on the sideline would become a symbol. Every loss would get louder. The Browns do not need that. They need clarity. They need energy. They need a fresh start that fans can actually believe in. Shedeur gives them that, not because he is perfect, but because he represents direction. There is a difference between uncertainty and exhaustion. Browns fans can live with uncertainty if they believe the franchise is moving forward. They can accept growing pains from a young quarterback if the plan makes sense. What they cannot accept is watching the team step backward because the front office is still emotionally attached to a decision that did not work. That is why the pressure is building. The fans are not just watching Shedeur. They are watching the Browns' courage. What happens if Cleveland gets this wrong? If the Browns get this decision wrong, the damage will not stop at the quarterback room. It will spread through the entire organization. That is what people need to understand. A quarterback decision is never just a quarterback decision. It tells the locker room what kind of franchise they are playing for. It tells the fan base what kind of truth the organization is willing to face. It tells the league whether Cleveland is serious about winning or still trapped by its own past. Imagine the Browns opening the season by leaning back into Watson while Shedeur waits. The first bad half would ignite the city. The first lifeless offensive performance would make every sports show ask the same question. The first home crowd reaction would tell the front office exactly how little patience remains. And then the pressure doubles. Because now Shedeur is no longer just a young quarterback competing for a job. He becomes the symbol of the decision the franchise refused to make. Every week he sits, the debate grows. Every week the offense struggles, the mistake becomes harder to hide. That is how seasons collapse. Not always from one dramatic moment, but from a slow buildup of obvious choices ignored. Players feel it, coaches feel it, fans feel it. The building becomes tense because everyone knows the conversation outside is louder than the explanation inside. And the worst part is that Cleveland does not have to walk into that storm. The escape route is right there. If Shedeur earns the job, start him. Give him the upgraded line, give him the improved weapons, give him the real opportunity that last year's situation never truly provided. If he succeeds, the Browns have found their future. If he struggles, at least the franchise learns something real and can build honestly from there. But if they delay him just to protect the Watson chapter, they learn nothing. They only waste time. That is the danger. Not just losing games, but losing truth, losing direction, losing the trust of a fan base that has already given this team more patience than most franchises ever receive. Cleveland cannot afford another season built around denial. The AFC North is too tough, the pressure is too high, and the window for changing the story is open right now. But windows do not stay open forever. The future is already on the field. At some point, every franchise has to decide whether it is brave enough to follow the evidence. For the Cleveland Browns, that moment is here. The evidence is not hidden. It is not buried under complicated data. It is standing on the practice field in the summer heat. Working, moving, preparing, and forcing everyone in the building to pay attention. Shedeur Sanders represents more than a young quarterback trying to win a job. He represents the possibility of a clean break. A chance for Cleveland to stop explaining the past and start building a future. A chance for the Browns to give their fan base something different from the same tired cycle of hope, disappointment, and damage control. But that chance requires courage. It requires the front office to admit that football decisions cannot be made with fear. It requires them to stop treating the Watson investment like a burden that must be protected at all costs. It requires them to let performance speak louder than reputation, money, or embarrassment. That is the heart of this entire story. If Shedeur walks into training camp and proves he is the best option, there should be no debate. Not a soft debate, not a fake debate, not a media-friendly debate designed to make everyone comfortable. The Browns should start the quarterback who gives them the clearest path forward. And the truth is, Shedeur does not need Cleveland to pretend he is already a finished product. No young quarterback is. He needs a fair chance, real support, and an organization that does not pull him into a political struggle he did not create. He needs protection that holds long enough for routes to develop. He needs receivers who can win. He needs coaches who build around what he does well. Most of all, he needs the franchise to stop hesitating, because hesitation has a cost. Delay has a cost. Protecting the past has a cost. And for a team like Cleveland, that cost can become years of regret. The future is not some distant idea anymore. It is not a draft board. It is not a slogan. It is already on the field. The Browns just have to decide whether they are finally ready to stop standing in its way. The lesson Cleveland cannot ignore. The Cleveland Browns are not just choosing a quarterback. They are choosing an identity. That is the real strategy behind this entire drama. Every winning franchise eventually reaches a moment where it has to separate emotion from evaluation, money from performance, and fear from leadership. Cleveland is there now. The question is whether the Browns will make the football decision or the comfortable decision. From a strategic standpoint, Shedeur Sanders gives Cleveland something the organization desperately needs: direction. He gives them youth, urgency, confidence, and the possibility of building an offense with a future, instead of constantly repairing one tied to the past. If the offensive line is truly improved, if the weapons are better, and if the coaching staff is serious about creating rhythm, then the smartest move is simple. Let the quarterback who earns the room lead the room. That does not mean Shedeur will be perfect. No young quarterback walks into the NFL without mistakes. There will be missed reads, tough drives, loud criticism, and moments where patience is required. But there is a major difference between growing through a future and repeating a mistake. Fans can accept development. They can accept bumps in the road. What they cannot accept is a franchise ignoring what is right in front of its eyes. The lesson here is bigger than Cleveland. In football and in life, people lose time when they are too afraid to admit something did not work. They protect old choices, defend old pride, and delay the new opportunities standing right in front of them. But peace comes from honesty. Growth comes from courage. And real leadership means giving people a fair chance when they have earned it. For Shedeur, the path is clear. Keep working, stay humble, lead with discipline, and let the preparation speak louder than the noise. For Cleveland, the message is even clearer. Stop fighting the future. If he proves he is ready, give him the keys and build the offense around belief, not regret. Now, I want to hear from you. Should Shedeur Sanders be Cleveland's starter? Comment 1 if you believe the Browns should move forward with Shedeur. Comment 2 if you think they should stay patient with the veteran plan. And if you want more real NFL stories like this, subscribe, hit like, and share this video with another football fan. Because this Browns quarterback battle may be the decision that defines the entire season.